The warmest welcomes along, everybody, to the Big Five Racing Podcast, taking you for the next hour of your day. Thank you very much for joining us to our little post-festival. We've had a bit of a break from what was just an absolutely fantastic week. Sporting events, when they converge annually, especially the British calendar, they may find themselves on occasions where there's a lull possibly in the action, in the drama personification. Cheltenham simply never does that, and this year followed standard. A Supreme which could bring form lines for a generation of horses, the mare who took her shot at the big time and bossed her lines. That part of yet another Willie Mullins Pressbury personification display certified by a warrior in the Gold Cup. And we're going to take you through the best of the action today from the Cheltenham Festival, alongside the start of the flat as well from Doncaster this weekend. It is a jam packed podcast for you all to enjoy. And if that wasn't good news, I've got my boys back. Yet another fantastic betting display from Cotty, whose winners we'll coast through shortly. But firstly, he's dodged the missiles and got home in one piece. Matty is back. Hopefully you had a very nice time away. Give us a flavour of what it's like for watching a Cheltenham Festival abroad, because I'll be honest, I was waiting for the text message off you saying, Bob, I need your racing TV details because I can't watch the racing here. It doesn't sound like it was that bad.
No, I mean it wasn't easy to get any access to like racing TV. Obviously, it's blocked out there, and I had a bit of difficulty with VPNs and whatnot. But via FaceTime, I managed to get most of the races watched, and multiple videos sent of races as well. So actually caught a lot more than I expected to of it, and it gave me a real different perspective of what I'm used to being there, and it's such a chaotic week and it flies by. But when I was away, it allowed me to sort of, I picked my selections out, didn't have too many bets, had a couple here and there, and it allowed me to keep on track of how my horses were running. And I actually, for the first time, I really tallied my results up and worked out kind of a level stake to £20 stake, which would be a rough bet for me. And so it's actually quite enjoyable. Obviously, can't beat being there, and I'd like to think next year I'll be back at Prestbury Park. But no, a different perspective, but yeah, and enjoyable as well.
You obviously missed the preview podcast that we did a couple of weeks ago because you were away on holiday. What was the best bet that you managed to land over the 4 days? Were you just really strong on like an All Park Star or Lossy Map, or did you find something at a nice price that paid well?
No, the best bet I managed to land for the week was an anti-post. It was originally a treble. The third one didn't run. It was Madara at 7-1 for the plate and Supremely West at 10-1 for the plate. So I think it was a £2.50 each way double. It did have a pie denom in, obviously got a balloted out. It would have been for £3,000. I think I would have been an absolute mess waiting for the last race and one of my best pals riding it. I think I would have been a state. So wasn't too gutted when it came out, but that was my best win for the festival. I've always found anti-post kind of tricky, so I was really happy to get that one on the board, to be fair.
Very nice, and we'll come on to an anti-post selection that you had on the podcast way back in November as well. We'll get onto that with the Gold Cup in a little while. Cotty, it was a very, very good festival for the headlines and the stories, the romance side that I get so involved with, but from the betting perspective, maybe not necessarily the entire fight back that we wanted from 2025, but there was a lot more punches landed this year than there was previous. Everyone seemed to get off to a pretty good start on day one. Day two floated a little bit. You were quite heavy on Majborough, or you weren't. Day three, Factor File came out, but there was still some other good winners in there, the likes of Wadu, and then onto the Friday. It was a better day for punters than traditionally it was, because obviously that late money was coming for so many good favourites. You ended up having a very good festival, and I suppose without giving it a rating, how do you feel you've been able to come out of that festival going toward the spring festivals as well?
Yeah, and I wouldn't say it was a very good festival in terms of profit. It was a good festival. Came out on the right side of it. Tend to always give them a bit back on the Friday. As well, I never go because I personally think the racing on the Friday is the worst, and obviously the crowds are very busy on the Friday. But yeah, gave him a bit back on the Friday despite Dino Blue winning. But yeah, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday was was good every day. Managed to catch a nice winner on the Thursday with Meet Me by the Sea. The Wednesday with Jinko Blue, and then the Tuesday was quite good with obviously Old Park Star getting us off to a flyer, and then managed to jump ship in the Champion Hurdle and get on Lossiemouth. Obviously, when we did the preview, I presumed Lossiemouth would go to the mares, but after when we found out she went to the Champion Hurdle, I had a good bit on her to win the Champion Hurdle, so that was also quite good.
Very nice. We'll run back through yours in a bit of a quick fire after we do the main races here to go through your best wins that you put up on the podcast, including a huge 20-1 winner in the Coral Cup as part of those selections. We're called the Big Five Race, and there's only one thing we can do every single year. That's where the name came from. That was from the Big Five races of the Cheltenham Festival. So let's get stuck into them and then on to the flat at Donny. It was just over 2 weeks ago that we had the first day of the Cheltenham Festival. We took the last week off because Matty wasn't back and I was working to figure out what I was doing with my life 2 weeks beforehand, out in Pop World till 4 a.m. 3 times. But we are going to take you back to the Tuesday, which is so strange to think that it was as long ago as it was. The Unibet Champion Hurdle, of course, was the feature and the first of the Big Five that we'll take you through from this week. That was Lossiemouth, who decided to come here, defected from the mares for the first time in 3 years, went off the 7-5 favourite and put her old rival Brighter Days ahead away by 6.5 lengths. The New Lion filled out the places. Matty, Lossiemouth was, I mean, she has always been the talking horse. I go back to when we did this podcast a couple of years ago, being sat in the room in the university down here, where I was keen on her taking a shot that year, and you said to be a bit patient because she was only 5 at the time, went on to be 6, and she didn't come because she had that fall in Dublin. The curtain was there this year, wasn't there? There was no State Man, there was no Sergino, who we sadly lost yesterday, there was no Constitution Hill. She had every right to take her chance, and she proved she is the perennial 2-miler in this division.
Yeah, she was brilliant, and that was kind of the race I watched, and I was like, oh, I wish I was there. That moment would have been superb to have seen live. But yeah, like, she just absolutely is a different horse at Cheltenham. She comes alive, and for Rich Ritchie and Willie Mullins, where else would you want a horse to come alive the way she does? The application of cheek pieces I thought were brilliant, because
yes,
I don't think there's ever been a question that she's ungenuine or anything like that. But Willie just managing to squeeze that extra bit of speed out of her early was exactly what she needed. She was always in her comfort zone. And, the minute she loomed there going down to the last, you knew that was it. She doesn't stop up that hill. She flies up it. And yeah, brilliant start to the week to see an absolute, hero of the game going like that. I thought Alexi ran an absolute blinder, to be fair, for Joe Tizard. I mean, I think we done one after he won the race at Wincanton, and you were pretty dismissive of him, and I sort of was a bit more, hang on, I think he ran well, and I think he's definitely a good horse going forward. And there's not many things Dan Skelton got wrong in the week or this season, but the New Lion is not a 2-miler, and he is. I had my doubts. I think you had your doubts. A lot of people had the doubts. And I think, yeah, he unfortunately his career as a champion 2-miler probably is over. But I'm sure he's got a big future ahead, stepping up in trip. His pedigree suggests that he's going to be a strong stayer. So I'm sure there's not too much lost there.
Must have made for a hell of a headache in the Dan Skelton yard. Obviously, the fact that there's no 2.5 mile race at the festival, because you looked at the New Lion not getting 2 miles in Cab Realm, Doomathan not getting 3 miles. We're going to the stayers in a minute, and I thought, well, if there was a 2.5 mile race, he could genuinely have had the 1-2 in that. But obviously, that's not something that happens at the festival. It'd be interesting to see if he is stepped up when he goes to Aintree for the 2.5 mile there. Cotty, Lossiemouth got pretty much the absolute bob-on trip that you wanted her to. She stalked Brighter Days ahead. The pace wasn't too genuine, but there was a bias that we were starting to learn early on in the week that the front runners were going to be very beneficial. and everything kind of just fell into place with her. In the end, it probably came down to the quality between the two mares. It's been hard to split them over the last few years, but whenever Lossiemouth was asked to go past Brighter Days Ahead, there was no issue there. Her jumping was fine. The cheek pieces, like Matty said, worked a dream, and 7-5 by the final furlong just looked like it was printing.
Yeah, no, definitely. Paul had her in the best position the whole way round, and yeah, a mare that always jumps well 99% of the time. Obviously, had that one fall a couple of seasons back at the Dublin Racing Festival, but you know, when your money's down, you're almost guaranteed a foot perfect display from her, and yeah, it was coming down the hill. It was a matter of just okay, stay on Paul, and then it's go and collect kind of thing. So yeah, it's nice when that happens. Yeah, I didn't really give the New Line much chance at all. I actually took one of the lads wanted 25 quid on the New Line, but couldn't get to the bookies in time. So I just said, oh well, I'll give you 3-1, take the bet. So that was a nice little top up as well. If the New Line won, it would have been a.
Do we know this friend, by the way?
We do, yeah, Gappy. He wanted to back it. He likes backing scouting horses, doesn't he? But yeah, couldn't really give it a chance over 2 mile, to be honest. So if that did win, then it would have been a bit of a bloodbath for me, paying out there and then losing the chunk on Lossiemouth as well. But now it's a good start to the week with a nice winner before that as well. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. No loss for me in the end. I was on Brighter Days Ahead for the podcast, and on the morning line, she ended up going out to 5-1, which is what I backed her each way. So I got my money back on the race, and I kind of knew my fate coming into 2 furlongs out, where I wanted Jack Kennedy to be exactly where he was on Brighter Days Ahead, very prominent, trying to steal a pace out of the race, but unfortunately just wasn't able to go hard enough in that circumstance. But it's obviously the best performance that she's shown over her time at Cheltenham. If these two were to rematch at Punchestown in the Irish race, will be the Hunter's Chase night for that. I think that could be a fascinating rematch, to be honest. But Lossiemouth has been perfect everywhere outside of Leopardstown, which I just don't think is her cup of tea. So I thought that the 2 mares were fantastic. The New Lion, absolutely abysmal that he was ever campaigned as a 2-miler, in my opinion, just not good enough. Alexi, like Matty mentioned there, good showing from her. Golden Ace, I think we've effectively just learned that she hasn't got the quality unless things go in her favour to be able to win these big grade ones, especially the champion hurdles. So you can always get a big price about her, but you need things to go wrong, and you can't rely on that. But for me, the right horse won on the day, and Lossiemouth finally got her champion hurdle. Wednesday, the BetMGM Queen Mother Champion Chase was the feature, just short of 2 miles. The one of the very few odds-on favourites for the entire week in this was Majbra. I'm gonna leave Cotty to absolutely take you through this, because he was keen on the horse, and we'll take you through that. Ilite Tomp was the winner of the Queen Mother at 5-2. Came back from that very bad fall and really looked horrible, of course, at Ascot, but has proven once again he is the best Grade 1 2-miler. I tipped him up at a big price earlier in the week, and the money just kept coming for him. Before I go to Majbra with Cotty, I'll go to you first here with Ilite Tomp. I have obviously always given my affection for this horse, and you now seem to be very much coming alongside of realising this is an absolute superstar 2-miler. Did everything right, was ridden patiently by Paul Town and allowed the others to make the mistakes for him, but ultimately it didn't matter. This horse was just, by the shock of the last, was just absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, no, I've really warmed to this horse the last couple of seasons. I think he's just matured a lot, obviously strengthened up. They took the hood off him for the first time, I think, and I know another brilliant bit of genius from Willie Mullins, to take the hood off, and it obviously paid dividends. I think the fact they went so quick helped the horse out a lot. He was plenty far back early on, but actually watching Paul Townend done a great debrief on Racing TV, but the week after Cheltenham, and he just said he was absolutely delighted with where he was. And whereas when I was watching, I was thinking a bit far back, but
I was the same as you. I was in the grandstand watching it, and I thought he's way too far back here. It felt like that.
I mean, that probably proves why we're sat here discussing it, and Paul's there, doing the business. But yeah, he's matured massively. Fantastic horse, and you imagine he'll be back at Sandown probably for the celebration chase over 2 Mile, and he take all the beating, providing he's came out of that well. Madgeborough very disappointing. I'm sure Cott will emphasise a bit more on that horse, and Le de Sud sadly he just doesn't find enough of pressure. I think the Schlur was brilliant for him. He didn't have to come off the bridle at all, and I think early season when the real superstars are probably just getting up and running, Le de Sud will be bang fit, and that's the time to be on side that horse. I think that's what we need to take forward through into next season.
Yeah, I agree. Ludesud probably couldn't have done any more. He probably ran to the best of his ability. It was obviously great shot of Harry Skelton looking around his shoulders, trying to see where Majbur was because he was making the mistakes. He turned around, seen Elite Tamp, and thought, well, a placing in the champion chase is not so bad. Liberty Hunter was the one who split them as well there at a massive price. Very, very, very big performance from that horse. Obviously, there's things going on at the minute with the owners and trainers, but that was a fantastic run. All the way down in 7th, you've got to get past the Irish Panthers, the Quilixioses, and the Captain Guinnesses of yesterday to find where Majborough eventually finished, Cotty. And at one stage was trading about 4 to 9, 2's on, was jumping his first 4 or 5 fences like he was the second coming. But what we've learned with this horse is when he makes one mistake, shit hits the fan like you wouldn't believe. And yeah, give your assessment on Majborough.
Well, yeah, I suppose you kind of hit the nail on the head. Really, there's not too much more to say. It was kind of when it made one error, they kind of, they're all like London buses. It was one after another after another. I did back Majborough, but no real damage was done. I did also do a £20 forecast in the race, just in case. I thought if Majborough wasn't going to be in the top 2, it was because his jumping would have gone to pieces. So I did have a £20 forecast on Elite Tomp to beat Le de Sud, and then for some reason Sean Bowen just decided to keep going with Liberty Hunter throughout the race. How he didn't fall off at the first, I'm not too sure. But yeah, you got the trainer that's assaulting people on dog walks that can then just change the name into his missus's name, and then obviously still going to have full control and finishes second in the champion chase to do me forecast. So yeah, I weren't best pleased with that, but yeah, that would have been a nice saver. But no, Lourdes didn't seem to get up the hill as well as Liberty Hunter. I mean, I know Dan was saying that he's got this horse, fresh and better than when it won in November. But if you can't beat Liberty Hunter to come second, you're definitely not going to win a champion chase anytime soon. So yeah, disappointing race. The winner was really impressive. I was there at Ascot when he fell and he was down for some time. So it just shows how good Willie Mullins is at getting his horses back. In the stands it looked touch and go whether the horse was going to get back up, and then 2 months down the line wins a championship race at Cheltenham on the bridle. So yeah, just amazing what 2 months can do to a horse, really. And yeah, Mullins strikes again.
And we're only really getting warmed up on the Willie Mullins praise here, but not you, Cotter, but I've found with a lot of people, they seem surprised at how incredible a trainer Willie Mullins is in so many different respects of the game. His ability to keep Grade 1 contenders at the top for so long, like he has done with his stay and chasers, the ability to get horses to go to Cheltenham first time and win, the likes of Cavega, Florida Pearl back in the day, and now he's proven he can literally get horses from a position where it looked like he was 10 minutes away from getting a bullet in the head to go in and win a champion chase is just utterly remarkable. I like I said there, this was one of the horses that I was very keen on in the podcast a few weeks ago, and it was great seeing the money continually come for him. He was just absolutely fantastic. Can't lie, I did have a little bit of a wet pan chubby underwear at the last, because you get that kind of crowd jump at Cheltenham whenever a horse goes past, and then there was like like it was a huge gasp, and I wasn't looking because I was with my friend Ben, and I just went fucking started punching him like really buzzing, and I thought, oh god, what's happened? Didn't realize he was nearly on the floor. Ilitates was fantastic, and Cotty's not going to be going around to Evan Williams' house for tea anytime soon, is what I gathered from the Queen Mother. Right, 2 from the Thursday we've got to take you through. Then the first of those is the 320 from the card. That was the Paddy Power Stayers hurdle. This was one of the monster prices from the week. Race kind of cut up a little bit because there was no horses coming from the back in this, and that's very strange to say about a Stayers. But I think this was the 5th time of asking from home by the Lee. JJ Slevin got his biggest ride and win to date to win the Stayers hurdle. Ballyburn was second. Ballyburn, it might be the weirdest horse of all time. I don't know how to describe him. The legendary Bob Ollinger, another fantastic showing from him in third. And then there's a lot to break down really with this, isn't there, Matty? With the Stayers hurdle, because obviously the winner was a shock, but it's obviously a household name to plenty of us. He's been in this company for donkey's years. He's been coming to the festival to run in this sport. You start to look down at the bottom of this Stayers and you think like, what's going on with these horses? Ballyburn looked completely lost at one stage in his career. Bob Ollinger's 11, he's still running huge races. Cabral du Matan was about 6s on at one stage and finished 4th. This was a very, very fascinating Stayers hurdle.
Yeah, this division just continues to just amaze me every season. I mean, it's definitely the hardest of the championship races to get a grip on, and it's so hard to figure out why. I mean, this year it looked like brilliant. We've had a load of young protagonists coming through. We had Honesty Policy, Marchand 2, Cabral du Matin, Impose Trois had improved massively, etc., etc. And yet still we've come back to an absolute veteran of the game winning a Stayers hurdle. It happened before with Cider Burley. It's probably happened many a times, and it's such a tricky division to nail down. I thought obviously Cabral du Matin was a blatant non-stayer, which he came there and looked like he was going to win pretty easily, just didn't stay. And perhaps Dan's probably wishing he could have reversed Cabral du Matin and the New Lions placings in the festival. I think it would have been interesting to see. And like
just
say,
actually, whilst we're on Cabral du Matin, I just want to get a bit of scope because there was a huge amount of criticism from Harry Skelton after the race from the performance of Cabral du Matin from people who backed him. Just trying to explain to people that a horse is possibly in a position where at around the 2 mile 6 mark, he's got one hurdle to jump and finds absolutely nothing. That it's a very difficult thing over 3 miles to be able to stay the entire engine, and surely there was nothing else Harry Skelton could have done. He waited as patiently as he possibly could. You can only wait so long before you have to press the green light. And it's just one of those, isn't it?
No, I think anyone giving Harry Skelton abuse for that should not be watching on horse racing. I mean, the horse absolutely, it wasn't a case of it got tired, it walked up the hill. Like it literally come back to, is actually, you can see when the winner crosses the line and the place horses, the horse is coming that much back under Harry, he's almost over its neck. Like that shows how much it's stopping from a momentum point of view. Like you say, he couldn't have done any more, absolutely tanked into the race, jumps brilliantly. You go down to the last, and it's his first time at 3 miles, and Harry probably thought, brilliant, we'll have one crack here, and he's just found nothing. So it happens. I did have my doubts, to be honest, about the horse. I mean, while he was with Paul Nicholls, they kept him to 2 miles very, religiously, albeit, he was younger and his form was good, but it was interesting. They never stepped him up. And yeah, it was just a big ask for him in the end, but he's definitely got a bright future for Dan and the rest of his career. And yeah, just back onto the Stayers. I mean, just a really tricky division to get on top of. Love to see Woodhoo in there next year. Probably won't mention her too much. It wasn't one of the greatest mares races of all time, but I thought she was very good, and she looks like she has all the the potential to step up to 3 Mile, and she's very honest, which not a lot of those Stayers Hurdle horses are. So she's one for me for next season already, and gives Gordon Elliott another dart to fire at it, even though he had probably the two very fancied ones this year and didn't manage to land it. But tricky race, tough division. That's all I have to say, really.
So many breaking points with the Stayers Hurdle here, Cotty, so I'm just going to kind of let you take the race how you'd like to.
Yeah, the one thing I'd like to see in racing going forward is I saw JJ Slevin picked up a big ban for over use of the whip. Also saw it with Charlie Deutsch in the Grand Annual. If these jockeys are using the whip too many times and then receiving, £1,500 fines and 14 days suspensions, do you not think that it should be done on the spot and the horse should be disqualified to stop these things happening?
Bye.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. And one of the bets I had of the week was Jazzy Matty. I didn't have many, and that was one. And that was an absolute gutting beat for me. I mean, I love that horse, and you obviously same name as me, and backed him in a lot of his races. And at the time, you obviously don't realise, but the fact we can have a steward's inquiry changed on the spot, I don't see any reason as to why we can't get this kind of thing changed. I mean, the stewards are watching the races. They'll be noting down how many times a horse is struck in a race. So I think going forward, it's got to be something that's looked at. I mean, Venetia Williams needed that winner, and it was desperation. But ultimately, Jazzy Matty would have won if Charlie Deutsch didn't overuse his stick. So I completely agree with Carl. It's a great point you've made. I'd be interested to see if there's any implications as to why they can't do it. I
just see it as cheating, because
I think especially when the winning distance is so narrow, that's probably the grey area with this is a nose ahead. That's very easy to overturn. But at what point do you go, the second horse would have won if he didn't, have? So then you obviously bring it into, you disqualify the winner, which is it has to be the way forward. I mean, the sport's done superbly with the whip in recent years, I think, and I'd done quite a bit of research into it recently, and the offences are down. It was something that had to happen, and it's been positive since they implemented the new rules. But now this is a stage where you can really clamp down on jockeys overusing the stick.
Yeah, I just think at the time he's got nothing to lose, because you think, okay, well I am 2 over, because he's obviously you obviously know when you're striking a horse, I'm over here. But if you're gonna get £1,000 fine, but you just had a winner at Cheltenham and you're gonna get $3,000 in prize money, and then you're gonna get
pays for it, covers the fine, doesn't it? Yeah, exactly.
And then you get a 2-week holiday in April, and it's like, well, you ask any jockey in the weighing room, they'd have 2 weeks off riding around Plumpton and Hereford to have a winner at Cheltenham. So there's no, there's punishment,
especially the Irish jockeys, because they won't care if they get banned in the UK.
Well, yeah, exactly. I just think maybe the top 3 in the market. It's not hard, like you said. The stewards are watching the race. You just count how many times it's been hit, or if the first 3 cross the line, you just go back and watch the race and check. The time the horses have all come back in the parade ring, you'd have been able to catch a race replay. If it say the top 3, that's normally like each way betting, that's where it counts. And I'm not saying this on a day-to-day basis, but definitely the championship races and the big festivals, I think there should be definitely some rule, because like Matty said, if Charlie Deutsch didn't hit that horse, if he hit it 2 times less and stayed within the rules, Martador wouldn't have won that race. But the only people that are missing out are the punters. Not the owner still gets the money. The trainer, the trainer and the owner aren't telling Charlie Deutsch to hit the horse 10 times, or JJ Slevin or whatever. But the only people that are missing out really are the punters and the connections of the second horse. But yeah,
I
that's
mean,
a bit of a
yeah, I
tangent.
think, you know, we've had Tris on here before, and you know, we'd like to obviously get more jockeys on. It'd probably be a good point to ask them. You know, they're professional athletes at the end of the day, and they know the rules, and ultimately, it's, you know, their duty as their job is to stick to the rules. And like you say, yeah, obviously jockeys know how many times they hit a horse. So yeah, it's a really good point. I just think the problem is, and obviously we might discuss the starts, I'm not sure, but once you start making rules for Cheltenham and not other meetings, I think that where it could potentially bring in a bit of confusion and stuff. But I mean, you know, if you look at football, the Premier League has VAR, the Championship doesn't. You know, do we just have it for Cheltenham, Aintree? You know, it's a really interesting debate, actually.
Yeah, it's a really good point, and it's something we'll probably come back to in the future as well. It's good analysis there and a nice breakdown of what happens. What one of the various factors, of course, was the whip rule that starts, among some other controversies that happened throughout the festival. And just to wrap up on the stayers there, I just thought Home by the Lee, it was a very deserving and nice winner, regardless of what JJ Slevin did or didn't do. I thought that the ride was nice from the front, and it's nice to see horses like that. Kind of it brings the love affection back into the sport. Bob Ollinger ran a very good third for me once again. What a bit of a hero that is. That's the first time he's ever lost at Cheltenham, which is crazy to think. But some of the old guards doing there, and I think that I agree with Matty. The likes of a Wadhu or something is going to have to come into this division, maybe even the new Lion, to add a little bit of that youth spice into things so that this division doesn't go wary over the next couple of years. We've got two races to take you through from the rest of the Big Five. We'll be pretty quick on this because when the Ryan out ended up going off, it went off without factor file. Of course, many of you will have seen Willie Mullins' very, very vocal opinion about what the state of the ground was come that time on the mid-afternoon on the Thursday. So we pulled factor file out about 30 minutes before the race, I think it was. I was in the new members lounge and it just came up on the screen and there was a bit of a sort of gasp. That obviously restructured the market completely, and Hartwood, who was second last year, tipped up by me, went on to win the race this year in a very, very emphatic fashion, taking on the likes of John Bon Banbridge and Perry Pass, who was very disappointing to say the least. Cotty, I'll swing back around to you then with Hartwood. We won't need to take a million years on this. The one thing I can guarantee did happen is that when Factor File came out, there was a big discussion in members between all of us of who was going to get on what. And I remember saying to everybody, I wish Cotty was here right now because he definitely would have been on John Bon. Am I right?
Yeah, I was on John Bon purely for the fact that
It's him.
It's John Bon. Yeah. I mean, Hartwood at 9-2 really was probably overpriced in you know, this sort of field with Factor File coming out. The late money for Banbridge into 3-1 was obviously due to the ground. Had a couple of skew-if jumps, you know, takes the momentum out of it, but was never going to win. Sadly, if John Bon was ever going to win round Cheltenham, you'd have, you know, over 2 mile 4, you'd have liked to have, you know, 2-1 favourites chance. You'd have liked to have thought that, you know, he could have gone out there and done it.
Have they fucked up a little bit now with John Bond running him here and not going fresh to Aintree, where he has performed at his best before?
I suppose. Yes, maybe, but you know, he had a favourites chance. You know, he's had a long old season really for a 10-year-old. You know, been to Ascot twice and won, and Sandown and Cheltenham. You know, maybe if they didn't go to Ascot in February with the Ascot Chase, and they went from the Clarence Hout straight to the Ryanair, he might have been a bit better horse. Maybe, you know, age is just getting onto his side with the fifth run in top company. But I was fairly happy throughout the race. You know, I didn't think my day was done. But yeah, Hartwood just travelled all over it in the latter stages. But now a gallant effort again from John Bon, and yeah, he probably won't get his Cheltenham Festival winner, but he's still some horse nevertheless. I mean, he beat a King George winner in third, so So yeah, there's lots to like, but yeah, just doesn't have the. It's not even he doesn't have the class. It's just I don't know what it is. He just doesn't like March.
He just doesn't like the month of March. He still retains his MVP status though, John Bond, and a fair second in the end, be a little bit distance behind Hartwood. Hartwood, Matty, who, funnily enough, everybody was putting up on the preview circuits the couple of weeks prior to this. This was just the natural tip because he was the one guaranteed Grade 1 2.5 miler who was going to turn up here in and amidst the issues with Gaelic Warrior, Factor File, etc. But I tell you what, even if Factor File was here, he would have had a much closer run for his money than he had 12 months ago. This was very, very good off the front. And I do this loads of Irish jockeys, but Darragh O'Keefe deserves all the praise in the world. He just seemed to nail this one.
Yeah, very good. He often gets it right. He's a fantastic jockey, and I think it's been seamless the way he's taken over from Rachel at the De Bromhead yard. That's obviously not. It's very big shoes to fill, and he stepped into them perfectly. Actually, when you look back at it now, you just think that was so bleeding obvious, the winner, and it's gone off 9-2. But yeah, in the moment, and John Bond coming in late, and Willie was obviously on fire in Pere Pass. It's a funny old game, but you look at the rest of the field, and yeah, like absolutely, Hartwood was the obvious winner, really. Yes, shame for John Bond. I don't know, like as Cott said, I don't know what it is about Cheltenham. Some people have said the fences come for him too quick, but then, he loves it round Ascot where you get fences after fence after fence after fence. So it's just any time he seems to be getting into the race or into a rhythm, he'll make a mistake and then he regains himself. It's another mistake. And ultimately, you cannot do that around Cheltenham, especially at the festival. I think a big thing I learned from this festival is you have to just jump. You have to jump at your absolute best around Cheltenham if you're going to win. But one thing, two things I want to say is I'd still be on side John Bond at Aintree. I think I wouldn't write him off yet because his constitution as a racehorse is brilliant. He takes racing superbly. He's had a brilliant career, not too many setbacks, so wouldn't worry about that too much. Also, in Pere Pass, I would absolutely be on side this horse next time. His form proves he's a better horse in the spring. Obviously, it's not ideal. He pulled up and ran no sort of a race, but it's mad what a bit of sun can do for some horses, and they get them out in the field and, they get them enjoying life once the sun comes out. And yeah, he's definitely one worth keeping on side of next time, wherever he goes, whether it's Aintree or Punchestown.
I was getting Langadon flashbacks then when you said the sun starts to come out and horses start to run. Conveniently, £20 better than they actually are.
It is a very cliche thing, but it's something, having worked with the horses and seen it, it is massive. I mean, you just look at us. The minute the sun comes out for us, we're happier. We're out. We're doing more.
Yeah.
So it's a very cliche thing, and a lot. Obviously, it used to get used with Langadon, but it's something I stand firmly by.
I'm always miserable, but I'm less miserable when the sun's out. And some of these horses, I agree with you, that's the same. Yeah, Hartwood was fantastic, the obvious pick, like you mentioned there, and that was a huge one for me because I was ahead by that stage of the festival, but then Hartwood went in at 6-1 for me. There was no way I could have lost during that festival, so that was the huge turning point for me. And I actually, one of our good friends that we go racing with, Noel, I tried to convince him to get on him, but some people just won't be told, unfortunately. The final race that we're going to do from Cheltenham is the big one itself, the Boodles Cheltenham Gold Cup. Once again, this is a bit of a me show this year, but I also had Gaelic Warrior, as did Matty. I put him up 6-1 in the preview bit. Matty put him up at 11-1. I mean, Cotty, there's just one word, and I don't use it too often, but spine tingling. I mean, that's 2 words. I mean, that is just about as good a performance as I have ever seen up that hill. He did absolutely everything right. Patiently ridden by Paul Townend, tried to assess everything, held onto the rail very nicely, and my God, when this horse got to the top of the hill, for my money, it's the best Gold Cup winner I think I've seen since Corso. Am I wrong?
No, it was very, very impressive, and think even Paul Townend said when he was coming down the hill, he just needed to stay on, and it looked like that. It was a perfect ride. He bounced him out in front to start with, and he was a little bit keen, and then Sean went on, and he just tucked in and settled and got into a nice rhythm, and yeah, there was doubts that maybe the 3 mile 2 might test him, but boy, he could have gone round again. I thought Django Bay in second, the horse I sided with in the end. I thought ran a very good race. Only a 7-year-old has got time on his side. First, considering he won the Arkle last year, and then you going up 10 furlongs into the Gold Cup for the first time over the trip. I thought that was a very good effort. And then I suppose the real eye catcher, bar the winner, was the third. I Know the Way You're Thinking has shown absolutely nothing.
Where did he come from?
Yeah, showed nothing throughout the season. He wouldn't have looked at a place in a Kim Muir or something this time round. Jumped horrifically and flew up the hill and managed to get third. I mean, I know we're a long way out, and horses get older and improve, but if you said this time next year the front three in the Gold Cup this year will be the front three in the Gold Cup next year, I wouldn't disagree with you. You got Gaelic Warrior who hosed up. You'd have to think that's a good thing for next year. Django Bay, I think, with an extra year on his back, he'll be a lot hardier horse this time next year. Could potentially even get closer to Gaelic Warrior, and then I know the way you're thinking next year. You'd like to think we might have a better campaign leading up to the race, and then in the race you'd have a good bet that he jump better next year, wouldn't you, than the way he did this year? So yeah, a good race, but yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if those three were the top three next year. If you want an early try cast for 2027.
Strong form lines ahead of the 2027 Gold Cup there, with Gaelic Warrior taking the prize once again. And it's hard to say that he won't, Matty, because two things definitively happened there with Gaelic Warrior winning the Gold Cup. The first of those is he's proven his credentials as a 3 miler, as you believed for a very long time, and I trusted that he was, coming off of the back of 2 good runs in the Irish Gold Cup and what we've seen in the King George. The second thing it did, unfortunately, was probably retire Galopin de Champs. He was obviously ruled out for the end of this season, but as much as Paul Townend's affection to Galopin is probably significantly better at this stage than Gaelic Warrior, I don't think Patrick Mullins is ever going to get another ride on this horse.
No, I think you're absolutely right there. And yeah, it almost seems like a changing of the guard moment, doesn't it? Because Galopin's probably handed the crown over to Gaelic, and there's absolutely nothing to suggest that this horse can't go on and win another one and be an absolute superstar. I mean, he's rapidly became one of my favorite horses ever, especially, but in recent years anyway. I think the day I led Grey Dawn up at Aintree and he beat him, Patrick Mullins rode him. At that point, I thought, yeah, wow, it's a good horse. And then, I mean, you just look at the season that he's had this year. He had that absolute headbanger with Factor File at Punchestown on seasonal debut as well.
On a bog.
On it, yeah, where he done absolutely everything wrong. Luckily, his jumping does always stand up, to be fair to him, but he was so keen. He just ran off with Paul that day, still managed to battle back, which is remarkable. Then the King George, which probably wasn't a harder race as people thought. They didn't go quick and they sprinted, and that clearly didn't suit him. We now know he's all stamina, but again, still a high class run. Then Patrick back on board. He ran very well at Leopardstown. But yeah, this one was he just took it to a whole different level. I thought it was brilliant from Paul. I think everyone expected Haiti Couleur to go forward from the start. He didn't quite get off to the flyer that probably everyone thought. I think jockeys in that position might have panicked and might have took back a bit on Gaelic Warrior. Paul just let him roll, got him into a rhythm. He was keen enough. And then, like you say, once the race developed going down the back, he got into a fantastic rhythm, and your eye was always drawn to him. And I think I should have saved it. I put in the group chat just before, I put Paul will come there hard held down to 2 out, squeeze into the last and takes off, wins going away. And I think I hit the nail on the head. Yeah, absolutely brilliant. Phenomenal horse. And I hope he just continues on this upward curve. Like I just said about John Bond, he's another horse, Gaelic Warrior, that seems to take racing so well, thrives off his racing. And yeah, obviously, I've mentioned Grey Dawn. He's a horse that's obviously close to me and the podcast. I thought he ran a fantastic race. Was immensely proud.
Well, when we started this podcast 2 years ago, it was right before he won the tournaments because we were worried about Ginny's destiny at the time, and that was going to be the situation. If I'd have told you then 2 years ago, I know you don't lead him up anymore, but obviously he's so close to your heart, he would ever get fourth in a Gold Cup, you would have snapped my right hand off in a second.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, absolutely, that was always the dream with him, and he sadly, he's probably just not quite good enough to win a Gold Cup, but that's taking nothing away from it. It takes an absolute freak to win a Gold Cup. But I thought he ran superbly, jumped brilliantly, and then just got tired. Maybe he doesn't quite stay the extended 3 miles. I think that's a fair argument, and sounds like they'll go and have a crack at the Ryanair next year. Why not? I think if you'd have put him in this year's Ryanair, he'd have definitely been in the 3. I imagine he'd get an aggressive ride in a Ryanair as well, which might just take a few out of their comfort zones. But I think Dan said afterwards, if you take a horse to a Gold Cup and you have him as ready as he can be and at the peak of his powers and he doesn't win, there's probably not much point going again next year. So, but I imagine that Betfair chase will be his for the taking again. So plenty more to look forward to with that horse.
We will be there. Yeah, Grey Dawn ran an absolute fantastic race, I thought, in fourth, and that's probably just about the scope. He probably ran to about a 165, 170, and unfortunately, to win these buggers, you do need to run to that absolute maximum 180. To be fair, I know the way you're thinking came from space and still managed to get third. I don't think I'm ever going to be brave enough to lay or back that horse because I just don't know what form of him's going to turn up. Django Bay in the second, Cotty was bang on. I think he will come again next year. We've got when he's being fully campaigned over 3 miles, where there's big targets for him, when there's Betfairs, there's King George's, there's Cotswold, there's big races for him to go and win, and then proceed to try and get closer to this horse. But this is a monster of a horse. It is the most excited I think I've been about a horse in a very, very long time at the top level. Paul Townend remains, as I've mentioned umpteen times to use on this podcast and to everybody I know, is a complete genius at the game. He knew exactly what buttons to press on this horse and not to get there when he needed to too early. He just flew up the hill so brilliantly, and the fact you can cruise on a horse like that in a Gold Cup that was being described as one of the deepest and most exciting for a very long time, and there's some very good horses in there. Yes, there was disappointments as well. Obviously, Haiti Color pulled up. The Jukebox Man obviously had his issues after the race, well, before the race, and will have his wind operation to hopefully help him, but I still think there are horses that can perform at this level. I mean, he's just a complete freak. Absolutely one of the best horses I've seen in a long time. I've always been big on him. I lost my absolute donuts on him in a 2-runner race against Factophile 2 years ago. And if you ever told me coming out of that day from Leopardstown that I would A, be able to afford the bus back into Dublin, and B, he'd win a Gold Cup, I'd have said no to both of those things. But he has just been absolutely brilliant, hasn't he? Worth mentioning, and it's very sad, but it's just a horse that we've all kind of grown to love in this game. On Voilen, of course, sadly lost his life from cardiac arrest shortly after the race, and thoughts with everybody at Cheveley Park. And I mean, if Henry de Bromhead gets any more bad luck in the next few years, I'm going to have to get a witch doctor on me to take it off him, because it's just been brutal. But what an utter legend of the game he was. But Gaelic Warrior, an absolute class apart in the Boodles Gold Cup, and I will back him at any price you want to win it again next year. We've gone a little bit over time there, so what we're going to do is we're just going to fly straight on to Doncaster. We've only got 3 races just to kind of welcome back in flat racing this weekend in the UK. We also, if you missed it, right below us, myself and Liam went through the Dubai World Cup from Saturday that's coming up. Forever Young and a bunch of other horses are running there. Do make sure to check that one out as well if you get a chance to. More domestic seeds, though, it is Lincoln Weekend, which is either fantastic if you love the flat, Matty, or it's just absolute hell trying to find a capitulation of 30 horses that have all got absolutely zero chance of ever winning a Group 1, but something might win at Doncaster. We'll get to that very shortly. We've got 2 races to take you through first, though. The 150 from Doncaster's the William Hill Price Boosts Everyday Cabbage Trophy Stakes. It's a listed contest over 6 furlongs. Spycatcher won this last year. He's joined at the top of the market with Montasib, who's been around for donkeys. 2 8-year-olds at the top there. Just saw there for Clive Cox and Jason Hart. The best of the rest from a young perspective. Cotty, I'll come to you first here. The cabbage obviously is kind of the early opportunity for sprinters to get themselves into recognition. Sprinting division in the UK has not been very good in the last couple of years, so anything could happen here.
Yeah, no, be interesting, to see which yards will be more forward than others. Spycatcher in here is probably the obvious starting point, winning the race last year. Prix Louis Germain takes a ride, obviously, with Clifford Lee being. I think I listened to an interview of Cole Burke saying that he's back riding out now after his motorbike accident. So, yeah, a big opportunity for Prix Louis Germain to get off to a good start. But I like Jasur here for Clive Cox and Jason Hart. Jason Hart's been keeping busy over the winter, been in good form, and I just like this horse's last run. Hasn't been seen since the middle of July. Came 6th in the Dubai July Cup at Newmarket. The 5th that day was notable speech. Granted, that horse probably isn't a 6 furlong horse, but was only a neck behind. Neck behind that horse that day. Watched the replay and was slow away. So if you like to think that a better start that day would, that 6th might have been, second or third, and if you come in second or third in a July Cup, 7-1 to have a shot at a listed race on Lincoln Day is probably a fair enough price. Hopefully he's done plenty at home and is fit enough. Clive does also have another horse in the race of James Delight. So I'll just be watching the market on those two really. If James Delight sees some money, then Just was probably just out for the run. But yeah, I think watching the markets, especially this early on in the flat season, will be crucial to see what chance you've actually got.
In those fantastic Al Mamadea silks, there's just saw 7-1 first flat tip of the season there for Cotty. Have you got anything for this, Matty?
Yeah, so I did say recently I'm going to try and give the flat season a better go than I normally do.
This will be fun.
Yes, going to start steady though. Like Cott said, it's always good to start the season to know, watch trainers kick off with a bang, etc. I thought at a big price here, he's gone out from 10s to 20s, so that's not a great start. But Art Power, the old boy in here, just reliable. Won a grade 3 at the Curragh last season, and then struggled again. But that grade 3 was on soft ground. I imagine it's not going to be too far off soft ground on Saturday. Bit of rain around at the moment, so I'm sure soft ground it'll be around soft, maybe a bit of good in it. And he's getting on now. He's 9, so I imagine every go he has these days it could potentially be his last go. So I think 20-1's a big price. He's a consistent old horse. Won plenty in his time, and I think 20-1 for the first big race of the flat season. Take your chances, hope for a place, and then build from there.
I like it. Group 1 winning Art Power there at 20-1, big price. but Tim Easterby. I think Spycatcher is probably just going to be a bit too good for them here, and in particular, Montasib, of course, is the big form line against others at decent prices. Spycatcher's had 3 runs at Doncaster. 2 of those have been wins, and both of those came last year as a 7-year-old. He's running now at 111, which is the best he's ever been in his career. So I think in the last 2 seasons, you've seen him get a little bit better from the sort of average days where the sprint division was a bit more competitive. He won this last year off the same rate, and he's got to justify giving them a couple more pounds this time round. But I think that's a very deserving mark for him. He's been at his best, like I said, there in the last 12 months. He's had 3 good wins last season as a 7-year-old. He won a Group 3 at Shanty, which came as a bit of a surprise too. I think there just seems plenty of life about this this horse for Carl Bark. But other than that, I think Spycatcher probably just looks a bit too obvious. But hopefully he can get my flat campaign off to a good start. We'll skip on from the card there to the 257, which is the William Hill Doncaster Mile Stakes. That's a listed Class 1 event over, you would have guessed it, a mile. Docklands has been around for a good minute now as the 2-1 favourite. Kirat, yes, that Kirat is 5-1. Chancellor 7s for Cheveley Park, and big prices about the rest. Unfortunately, he's not 150-1 this time, Cotty Kirat, but of course won a Group 1 last year that kind of put the cat amongst the pigeons. Comes back into company here where he looks a bit more in his class, shall we say. Docklands is at the top of the market. He's won a couple of big races himself, and this is a little bit of this is pretty decent renewal of the Doncaster Mile.
Yeah, no, I like the top of the market here. Docklands hasn't been seen in a listed race now for going on 2 years. Won the Queen Anne at Royal Ascot last season, beating Rasalian by nose. Has been here, there, and everywhere since. Chardin, Deauville, Goodwood, back to Ascot. I think he even had a stint in Japan as well for a run. So yeah, back to Doncaster now, and if there's ever a horse that will suit Jamie Spencer's riding tactics, it'll be this. Normally a bit slower way, so typical Spencer, hold at ride, pick him off, still be on the bridle a furlong out, and then just little shake of the reins and win by half a length, and keep the stick in his hand instead of using it. I think will be the play here.
I can't wait for the day Jamie Spencer just bombs along in a 2-mile contest and tries to really freak everyone out. Docklands there at the top of the market there for you at 2-1. This isn't a bad renewal of this race, Matty. There's a couple of horses that have proven themselves in big Group 1, Group 2 company before, and a few that have 2, 3, 4-year-olds that are improving all the time. 4-year-olds rather. Any selection for the Donny Mile?
Yeah, I've gone for another one in each way price. Not as big a price as the last one, but Volterra for Kevin Ryan. Kevin Stott's jocked up for this one. Actually beat Kirat last season over 7 furlongs on soft ground at Ascot. Ticks boxes with the ground again. Kevin Ryan is normally one that does get off to a bit of a flyer on the flat, so worth noting. And he's been mainly campaigned at 7. His runs at a mile haven't been disastrous, but haven't been amazing. Hoping that another year older, it might just allow him to get the extra furlong, and it might eke out a bit more improvement for him. So yeah, another each way selection for me there.
Lovely. I'm on the other 7-1 shot here. I've been reeled back in by Chancellor, which feels like a very weird thing to say in 2026. This horse had the world at his feet as a 2-year-old, and he kind of just faded away a little bit last season. He was gelded in the summer and switched to operating on the all-weather, and he's been fantastic in that domain. He's had 4 runs, 2 wins, 2 seconds. The latter, he went down a neck in the Grade 3 Group Winter Derby from Lingfield. The big thing now is proving that he's going to be able to switch back to the turf, because it's one good thing running on the all-weather. It's switching onto the turf, as the Constitution Hillnovers are going to have to prove that too. He hasn't been that operative, unfortunately, but he still sits there in the low 110s as a horse that's open to progression here as a 4-year-old. Has to give the field £3 for a group win previously, but I just think there's enough of a chance here to get to some of the old boys. He ran 35 days ago. The majority of the others are here 100 plus layoffs, so I think that he's not got the cobwebs to dust off. So Chancellor seemed a pretty good price for me in the Doncaster Mile. We will wrap up then with the first big race of the flat here in the United Kingdom. That is the William Hill Lincoln Heritage Handicap Class 2 event over a mile on the dead straight for 4-year-olds and above. Labot is at the top of the market. Jamie Spence will take the ride there. There's huge talk about this horse last time out being very held up, shall I say, without getting in trouble. And then you're into huge prices about anything that you like in the Lincoln. And just to throw you right under the bus here, Matty, I'll let you go first because this is a race that is, it's a typical sort of listed national hunts 1 to 6. These are nice, easy races to find the winner of. I always find.
Yeah, I said before we come on, how many places will they be playing? Probably about 8 in this. Couldn't believe the amount of entries and stuff. Yeah, going to take a stab at one. You might be able to tell me if will Buick be at Donny on Saturday?
No, he's at Maidan.
Right, that's not ideal. That's not what I wanted to
Bill
hear.
Lochnan, who takes the features.
Well, that's no bad substitute, I guess. But yeah, Charlie Appleby's got one here. Anno Domini, 16-1. Won 2 novices on his first 2 starts, and then was really stepped up in class and just struggled a bit. But then he's come back to form a bit in Maidan recently. I mean, he was 6th and 9th, but he was only beaten 2 lengths on both occasions. So they're not bad runs at all. And you might potentially have a lenient mark here. The fact that they're chucking him into the big race. And I think 16-1 about a Godolphin Charlie Appleby horse early season is worth getting hold of if you can.
Just the one for you in the Lincoln.
Just the one, yeah. I'm going to take a steady approach to the flat season and see how I get on. But yeah, I thought, just with the connections and etc., might be worth it. Might shorten on the day potentially.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, 1 bullet or 5 bullets. This is never an easy contest to get the winner of Cotty. I suppose if you do, though, you're going to start your flat season as you mean to go on, hopefully, because this is tricky.
Yeah, I'll also take the 1 bullet as well. I think that's all I need. I'm going to go for Shout here for Simon and Ed Crisford. They've had quite a decent start to the year, picking up some nice prizes in Dubai. Rob Havlin's been keeping himself busy as well, which is good. Consistent horse, really lots of 1s and 2s by his name. This horse seems to like the mile perfectly fine. Has run on good to firm, has won on soft. So if there was a bit of rain to come, it wouldn't be the end of the world. He's 1 out of 1 round Doncaster. He's up there in the handicap mark, off a mark of 101. So yeah, it definitely get in the race. Won a big handicap at Ascot, so the big field won't be an issue. It'll be in and around the midfield, and then hopefully the gaps open at the right time. And if there's no hard luck story, I'd like to think he'll be there or thereabouts at the finish. And I'd imagine a lot of bookmakers will be trying to pay a lot of extra places here to get the punters on board with them for the flat season. So yeah, 12-1. I'll have a pop and hopefully can fill a place.
Yeah, and the thing I like that you both did there, and I put it at the top of my notes, my 2 selections here, is I don't like backing older horses in this domain, and the fact you've backed 2 4-year-olds there, to me, tells you you're on the right lines. Unless they're carrying a very high weight, which the majority of them aren't, they're probably just useless, to be fair. So both horses there that are open to improvement with Shout and Anno Domini. I did take a couple of bullets at this one. I've got 2 20-1 shots, and they definitely are both going to get in. The Lost King is a bit of a slight preference of the 2 for me. He runs there for Andrew Balding. He's been keeping busy in the all-weather with a surprise win there earlier in the season. He's been propped up 6 pounds since we last seen him on the turf for those successes. I think this is a 4-year-old who remains pretty well treated by the handicapper. He's open to complete improvement, as of course quite a few of them are, but he was one of the younger ones that I just seen and thought, the fact he's come in there fresh is a very good sign, and I think this is very, very good target training from Andrew Balding. A slightly busier campaign has been Volvano for Rafe Beckett. He does have cobwebs to dust off, unlike the Lost King, so that's kind of why I preferred him. This is a seasonal re-up. Maybe needs the Lincoln to come into the summer, but he only raced 4 times last season. He placed in good handicaps as well at the end of the year. He was third in a handicap on dead ground here at Doncaster. I wouldn't personally say Doncaster's a form haven track personally, but he's entitled to build on that 96 rating as well. And hopefully he's able to take advantage of what's guaranteed to be quicker ground, even if it is on the soft side. Seems to be a better operator the better it is, but that is the main takeaway I had for the Lincoln, the Lost King and Volvano to fill out the places. I am conscious of the time as well there, folks, so what I'm going to do is we're going to go and give you our nap of the week selections over on Instagram. It will be literally posted as you see this. I'm going to get them off the boys now. Cotty's got one for tomorrow, and Matty's going to find one from the weekend, as am I. But as we've hit the hour mark, I do want to thank everybody for sticking with us. Hopefully you had a fun time there going back through the memories of Cheltenham from 2 weeks ago. It's only 50 weeks to go now, Cotty, until the next festival. Can you believe it? And we're not obviously done with the jump stuff. We've got the Grand National coming up. We've got Punchestown, and then we're into the hard, flat stuff. So this is a really exciting time of year.
Yeah, no, look forward to it, and roll on Aintree.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Matty, Wednesday night television. No football, no problem. Constitutional runs in an hour and 12 minutes, so I'm going to be ASAP getting this fucker out and edited because I cannot wait to see the King back on the grass.
He's not on the grass.
Not on the grass, on the dirt.
It gives us something to watch, doesn't it? Like you say, very quiet week with regards to sport and stuff. So, it gives us something to watch and bit of a quiet weekend race, and obviously the Donny meeting is the highlight, but quieter with the jumps meetings. Decent little card at Ascot on Sunday. I'll probably get stuck into that.
And Maidan.
I'll leave you to deal with that place. No footy either. You can't really class it.
Northern Ireland are playing Italy, so you've got that to look forward to.
I don't know who you'll be supporting. Northern Ireland, Republic of Ireland, England. I'm not sure it'll be this week, but
whoever wins.
Yeah, that's the best way to be. But
no one.
No one.
Good to be back on there, and good to chat Cheltenham, and I'm on to next
Lovely,
week.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, boys, for coming on, and we'll be back to regular scheduling for a bit of a hybridy jumps, flatty stuff from next week as well. Building up towards, of course, the biggest race of the year, the Grand National from Aintree in a few weeks' time. So look forward to that podcast. Thank you to Cotty, thank you to Matty, and thank you all for joining us. Really appreciate your time, and we will see you next week on The Big Five. Take care, folks.